A little beggar girl, barely 5 years old, just wanted to quell her hunger with her tiny, dirty hands and an empty stomach for 2 days. She rummaged through a trash bag behind a fancy restaurant, but just when everything seemed lost, when the humiliation reached its peak, a millionaire observed everything from inside his car. What happened next would forever change both of their destinies. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The fine October rain turned the streets into dark mirrors, reflecting the neon lights of the upscale establishments that dotted that prime area of the city. Inside a black Mercedes with tinted windows, the millionaire adjusted the gold Rolex on his wrist as he waited for his driver to return with the documents from the office. At 42 years old, he possessed everything money could buy: a chain of 15 high-end restaurants, a 23-room mansion in Bel Air, imported cars, and investments that grew even as he slept. However, his gray eyes carried the emptiness of someone who had lost everything that truly mattered. It had been 3 years since the accident, 3 years since his wife and 6-year-old son died in the impact against a runaway truck. He was driving that day. He survived with only scratches, while his family was torn apart in the back seat. Since then, his life had been reduced to numbers, profits, and a mechanical routine that kept him too busy to feel. Across town, but just a few feet away from where he was waiting, a 5-year-old girl crawled behind a dumpster. Her small, dirty fingers rummaged through decomposing food scraps, searching for something, anything that could silence the pain that had been gnawing at her stomach for 2 days. Her torn dress, which had once been pink, now displayed stains of mud and dried tears. Her brown hair stuck to her thin face, framing brown eyes that were too large for such a small face. She didn't quite remember when everything started to fall apart. First, her mother had disappeared after a violent argument with a man she called her stepfather. Then, the grandmother who had taken her and died of pneumonia last winter. For a few months, she managed to survive in the home of a compassionate neighbor until financial problems made it impossible to support another mouth. The street became her address, and hunger, her most constant companion. That afternoon, her heart leaped when she saw a piece of still-warm chicken at the bottom of the plastic bag. Le Petit Chateau restaurant always discarded top-quality leftovers. Wealthy customers preferred to waste rather than take them home. She held the piece of meat with both hands, as if holding a treasure, and brought it to her mouth with desperate urgency. The taste of the seasoned food exploded on her palate. For a brief moment, she forgot where she was, forgot the rain that soaked her back, forgot the loneliness that consumed her. There was only that wonderful sensation of having something in her stomach. "Hey, you disgusting little brat, get out of here," the security guard's gruff voice cut through the air like a blade. The man in the navy blue uniform advanced toward her with large steps, his face contorted with disgust and irritation. She tried to hide behind the dumpster, but it was too late. Huge hands grabbed her arm, yanking her off the ground with unnecessary violence. "How many times have I told you, filthy brats, to stay away from here? You're scaring the customers." The man shook her as if she were a rag doll. The piece of chicken fell from her hands and rolled across the wet sidewalk. She stretched out her arm, trying to reach it, but the security guard pulled her away, dragging her by the hair to the street. "Next time I see you here, I'm calling the cops. Got it, you little stink?" With a brutal shove, he threw her to the ground. She fell to her knees on the rough sidewalk, scraping her delicate skin. The physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation that burned in her chest. Around her, people passed by in a hurry, averting their gaze, pretending not to see. Some customers of the restaurant watched the scene through the glass, but soon returned their attention to their expensive dishes. She remained there, kneeling in the rain, watching the piece of chicken slowly disintegrate in the downpour. The tears mixed with the water that ran down her face, and for the first time in those terrible months, she felt completely invisible. She was not seen as a child who needed help, but as a nuisance, human trash that stained the landscape of that posh neighborhood. Across the street, inside the Mercedes, the millionaire had observed the whole scene. His hands gripped the steering wheel with increasing force, the knuckles of his fingers turning white. Something inside his chest An area that he had considered dead since the accident began to throb with a painful intensity. The image of the child being dragged like an animal hit him with the force of a punch. He knew that security guard. He knew the owner of the restaurant. He knew the unwritten rules of that world where the poor were treated as urban pests. He had always accepted all this as a natural part of how society worked. After all, he himself had built his empire by following those ruthless rules. But at that moment, seeing that tiny girl crying, in the rain, surrounded by indifference, something inside him broke like an ancient dam. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something beyond the emptiness, a sharp, almost unbearable pain that forced him to recognize that he was still alive. The Mercedes engine remained running for long minutes as the millionaire watched. The girl still kneeling on the sidewalk. The rain had intensified, turning into thick drops that hammered against the windshield. She didn't move, as if she had given up looking for shelter, accepting that this was her place in the world, wet, hungry, and completely alone. Something in her posture, the way she hunched her shoulders, the way she kept her head down, triggered a memory that he was trying to keep buried. His son used to do exactly the same movement when he was scolded. A specific curve in his back, a silent vulnerability that screamed for protection. "Sir," the driver's voice startled him. The man had returned and waited beside the car, holding a folder with the requested documents. "Is everything okay? I'll stay here." The words came out of his mouth before he could fully process them. "You can go, Diego. I'll get back on my own." The driver hesitated, following his boss's gaze to the child on the sidewalk. He had known that man for 7 years and had never seen him show interest in anything that wasn't related to business. But there was something different in his expression at that moment, an intensity that he hadn't seen since before the accident. "Are you sure, sir? It's pouring rain. And go, Diego." The final tone left no room for questions. The driver handed over the keys and stepped away, not without casting one last worried look at the unfolding scene. The millionaire got out of the car slowly, as if each movement was a conscious decision against everything he had become in recent years. The rain soaked his $3,000 Italian suit in seconds, but he didn't even notice. His eyes were fixed on the girl, who had finally raised her head and was watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She was even smaller than she seemed from a distance. Her skin was dirty, but he could see that it was naturally fair, probably beautiful when clean and fed. Her brown eyes shone with unshed tears, and there was an early intelligence in them, the kind of perception that children develop when they are forced to grow up too fast. He stopped a few feet away, unsure how to proceed. It had been so long since he had interacted with a child that he felt like a foreigner, trying to communicate without knowing the language, how to approach without scaring her even more, how to offer help without seeming like a threat. "Are you hungry?" The question came out softer than he expected, almost a whisper that barely overlapped the sound of the rain. She stared at him for a long moment, assessing him. She had learned to distrust adults, especially well-dressed men. They usually represented authority, and authority meant trouble for children like her. But there was something different about this man. His voice didn't carry the harshness she was used to hearing, and his eyes looked hurt, almost as much as hers. Slowly, she nodded her head. He took another step closer, extending his right hand towards her. She flinched instinctively, and he noticed the movement, freezing in place. For a moment, they remained like that. He with his hand outstretched, she backed against the wall, both soaked by the rain that showed no signs of diminishing. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice carrying a sincerity that surprised him. "I just want to help you get out of the rain." She studied his face, looking for signs of lies or bad intentions. She found none. There was only a deep sadness that she recognized, because she saw the same sadness reflected in the glass windows of the stores when she ran past them. Hesitantly, she extended her small, dirty hand towards his. The contrast was striking, his hand large and well-groomed, with the gold Rolex glinting on his wrist, hers tiny and rough, with dirt encrusted under her bitten nails when their skins touched. Both felt a strange electric current. He, because It had been 3 years since he had touched a child, because it had been months since anyone had touched her with gentleness. "What's your name?" he asked, helping her to get up. That she hesitated again. On the street, giving your real name could be dangerous, but something about this man made her feel that maybe, just maybe, she could trust him. "Anna," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Anna." He repeated the name as if he were tasting its sound. "It's a beautiful name. Would you like to get something warm to eat, Anna? I know a place that makes really good hot chocolate." Her eyes widened. Hot chocolate was something that belonged to the world of dreams, along with toys and soft beds. She couldn't even remember the last time she had had anything other than water from a public faucet. Really? The question came out loaded with a hope so pure that he felt a pang in his chest. Really? He led her to the car, opening the back door. Carefully, she hesitated at the entrance, looking at the luxurious interior as if it were a palace. The beige leather seat was softer than any surface she had ever touched. There was a smell of new car and expensive perfume. "You can get in," he encouraged, noticing her hesitation. "It's okay if you get the seat wet. It's just leather." She climbed in slowly, still apprehensive. Settling in the farthest corner from the door, he walked around and got in on the other side, maintaining a respectful distance. When he turned on the car's heater, she almost sighed with relief as she felt the warm air touching her cold skin. During the drive to the cafe, they remained silent. She looked out the window, fascinated by the streets she had never seen from inside a car. He watched her in the rearview mirror, noticing how she marveled at simple things: the movement of the windshield wiper, the soft sound of the radio, the feeling of being dry and warmed out when they arrived at the cafe, a cozy establishment that he frequented occasionally. He noticed the disapproving look of the receptionist when she saw the dirty girl beside him. He completely ignored the woman's reaction and asked for a reserved table, away from the curious eyes of the other customers. Anna sat on the upholstered chair as if it were made of crystal, afraid of breaking it. When the waiter brought the hot chocolate with whipped cream and cookies, she looked at him for permission before touching anything. "You can eat," he said softly. "It's all yours." She took the cup with both hands, inhaling the sweet aroma before taking the first sip. The hot chocolate went down her throat like a wave of liquid happiness. She couldn't contain a sigh of pure pleasure. It was at that exact moment that he knew that his life had changed forever. Seeing that child rediscover the taste of happiness, he also rediscovered himself capable of feeling something beyond the emptiness that had consumed him for 3 years. The hot chocolate was gone, but Anna continued to hold the empty cup, reluctant to let go of it, as if that could prolong that magical moment. The millionaire watched her every movement, every expression that crossed her small face. There was a purity in her gratitude that left him simultaneously touched and uncomfortable. "Thank you," she whispered, finally placing the cup on the saucer with exaggerated care. "It was the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life." Her words struck him like a sharp blade. "The most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life." He spent more on a single meal than many families had to eat for an entire month. How had that child reached the point of considering a simple hot chocolate the best meal of her existence? "Where do you sleep, Anna?" The question came out before he could censor it. It was none of his business. He shouldn't get involved. She lowered her eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "In different places, sometimes in the park, sometimes under the awning of the pharmacy when it's raining a lot." He clenched his fists on the table. A 5-year-old child sleeping on the street, alone, at the mercy of any predator or danger. How did society allow this to happen? How had he himself spent 3 years completely ignoring this reality that existed just a few blocks from his privileged life? "And your parents?" "My mom left," she replied with a frightening naturalness. "My grandma died last winter. Since then, it's just me. 2 words that summarized a loneliness that he knew intimately, but which in a child sounded like an unjust condemnation from the universe. He stood up abruptly, walking to the window of the cafe. He needed air, distance, perspective. What was he doing there? Why had he stopped? He wasn't a savior. He wasn't a hero. He was just a broken man, trying to survive day after day his own guilt. He couldn't save that girl because he couldn't even save himself. "Sir?" The small voice behind him made him turn around. Anna had gotten up from her chair and was watching him with worried eyes. "Are you okay?" The question was absurd. A 5-year-old child, abandoned and hungry, asking if he was okay. He, who possessed more resources than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, was being comforted by someone who had absolutely nothing. "I need to take you back," he said, his voice coming out harsher than he intended. "I can't, this isn't right." Her face closed immediately, like a flower retracting at the first sign of danger. She had learned to recognize the signs of imminent rejection. Adults were like that. They offered crumbs of kindness before sending her away, usually with a cleaner conscience for having done their part. "Okay," she said, returning to her chair to grab a non-existent coat. "Thanks for the chocolate." The resignation in her voice was even worse than if she had protested or cried. She simply accepted that good moments were temporary, that people like her didn't deserve more than scraps of charity. He returned to the table, forcing himself not to look directly at her. He needed to be practical, rational. He would leave her in a safe place, maybe give her some money to feed herself for a few days, and move on with his life. That's what any sensible person would do. But when they left the cafe and he opened the car door for her, he realized that his hands were shaking. It wasn't from the cold. The car heater kept the temperature pleasant. It was from an emotion he couldn't name, a mixture of fear, guilt, and something he had forgotten how it felt, the urge to protect. During the drive back, Anna remained silent, looking out the window with a distant expression. She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't ask to stay longer. There was a dignity in her acceptance that impressed him and broke his heart simultaneously. When they arrived at the area where he had found her, he parked the car but didn't turn off the engine. The rain had stopped, leaving the wet streets glistening under the light of the street lamps. Anna waited a few seconds before moving to get out of the car. "Anna," he called when she already had her hand on the door handle. She turned to look at him, and he saw in her eyes a cautious hope that almost undid him. "Take this." He took some bills from his wallet, more money than she had seen in her entire life. To buy food, she took the money carefully, as if it were something sacred. "Thank you. You're a good person, a good person." If she knew the guilt he carried, the selfish decisions he had made, the family he had lost because of his own negligence, she wouldn't say that. But there was a sincerity in her gratitude that made him want to be worthy of her words. "Take care, Anna. I take care of myself," she replied, and there was a strength in her voice that belied her age and apparent fragility. She got out of the car and walked towards a covered sidewalk where he could see other figures leaning against the wall, other homeless people who probably formed a kind of makeshift family. Anna joined them, being greeted with nods and questions about where she had been. He drove home in silence, but with each block he felt more restless. The mansion awaited him empty and silent as always, but for the first time in 3 years, the silence didn't bring him relief. It brought a growing agitation, a feeling that he had left something important behind. That night, he stayed awake late, walking through the empty corridors of the house, stopping occasionally in front of the room that had been his son's. The door had remained closed since the accident, but he could visualize every detail of the interior, the organized toys, the small bed with superhero sheets, the storybooks piled on the shelf. His son would be about Anna's age now. If he were alive, he would have the same innocent curiosity, the same ability to find magic in small things. And he, as a father, would do anything to protect him from the cruel world out there. But Anna had no one to protect her. Anna faced the cruelty of the world alone, night after night. When he finally managed to fall asleep, his dreams were populated by confusing images. Anna crying in the rain, his son calling for him at the moment of the accident, and a voice that seemed to come from within his own heart asking repeatedly, "What are you going to do about it?" 3 days had passed since the meeting at the cafe, but the image of Anna didn't leave the millionaire's mind. He tried to concentrate on the financial reports, the meetings with suppliers, the routine that normally kept him busy from 6 in the morning until late at night. But his mind insisted on wandering, always returning to those brown eyes and the small voice saying thank you with a gratitude that he didn't deserve. On the morning of the 4th day, He did something he hadn't done in years. He canceled all the meetings and drove to the area where he had left Anna. He told himself that it was just to check if she was okay, if she had managed to feed herself with the money he had given her. Nothing more than that. He found her sitting on the steps of an abandoned building, sharing a loaf of bread with another child even smaller, a boy who couldn't have been more than 3 years old. She had torn the bread in half, giving the larger portion to the boy, who ate with the same desperate hunger that he had observed in her days before. He remained in the car for a few minutes, observing the scene. Anna had bought food with the money he had given her, but instead of keeping everything for herself, she was sharing it with another child in an equally precarious situation. There was a natural generosity in her that contrasted drastically with the selfish world in which he lived, where people plotted against each other for money and power. When she saw him approaching, her face lit up with a genuine smile, the first real smile he had seen on her lips. There was no calculation or self-interest behind that smile, just the pure joy of seeing someone who had been kind to her. "Hi," she said, getting up from the steps. "You came back." The simplicity of her happiness touched him deeply. When was the last time someone had been genuinely happy to see him? His employees greeted him out of obligation, his business partners out of self-interest, and he no longer possessed anything that could be called true friendship. "Hi, Anna." He looked at the little boy, who was hiding behind Anna with a piece of bread in his hand. "Who's your friend?" "This is Mikey," she replied, pulling the boy close to her with a protective gesture. "He doesn't have anyone either. I take care of him. I take care of him." A 5-year-old child taking care of another, even smaller. The role reversal was both touching and tragic. Anna had assumed responsibilities that shouldn't exist in her life, developing an early maturity that broke the heart of whoever observed. "Have you guys eaten today?" "We shared a loaf of bread," she replied with pride, as if it were a great achievement. "And yesterday we got an apple that was only a little bruised." He closed his eyes for a moment, fighting against the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. These children were surviving on scraps while he possessed refrigerators full of food that he rarely touched. "How about we have lunch together?" The question came out before he could analyze it rationally. "You too. I know a place that has a really good kids menu." Anna's eyes widened as she looked at Mikey with an expression of cautious hope. The boy clung tighter to her hand, clearly scared by the presence of the well-dressed stranger. "Mikey is kind of shy," Anna explained, noticing the boy's hesitation. "He doesn't talk much, but he's a really good kid." She bent down until she was at the boy's height, whispering something in his ear. He nodded slowly, still clinging to her hand, but seeming a little less scared. "Okay," she said, turning to the millionaire. "He agrees, but only if I stay with him, of course. You stay together." The drive to the restaurant was a revelation for him. Anna kept Mikey close the whole time, explaining to him about the car, about the buildings they passed, about how to fasten the seatbelt. Her voice carried an infinite patience, and he realized that she had become, at her tender age, a kind of mother to that even smaller child. At the restaurant, a simpler place than the cafe from before, but still frighteningly luxurious for to street children, he watched fascinated as Anna cut Mikey's food into small pieces, as she tested the temperature of the juice before giving it to him, as she wiped his face with a napkin between each bite. "Have you always taken care of him?" he asked. "Since his mom disappeared a few weeks ago," Anna replied, not stopping giving attention to the boy. "He cried a lot at first. Now he's more used to it." Used to it. A 3-year-old child used to abandonment. The concept was incomprehensible to him, who had grown up surrounded by privilege and protection. "And you, who takes care of you?" Anna paused, the fork in the air, as if she had never considered that question before. "I take care of myself, and I take care of Mikey too. But you're a child. Children need adults to take care of them." She looked at him with a strangely mature expression, as if he had said something naive. "The adults I've met weren't very good at taking care. It's better if I do it myself." The sentence hit him like a punch to the stomach. What kind of adults had a 5-year-old child met to reach that conclusion? What kind of abandonment and neglect had she experienced to develop such self-sufficiency? After lunch, he took them to a nearby park. It was a sunny afternoon, and there were other children playing with their parents. Anna and Mikey sat on a bench, watching the colorful toys with a silent fascination. They didn't run to the swings or slides like the other children did. They simply watched, as if that world was destined for other people. "Don't you want to play?" he asked. Anna shook her head. "We don't want to bother anyone." Bother. She had learned to see herself as a bother, as someone who didn't deserve to occupy the same spaces as other children. She had internalized her position of social invisibility to the point of depriving herself even of playing. He sat on the bench next to them, watching the other families, fathers pushing children on swings, mothers applying sunscreen on faces flushed from playing so much, grandfathers teaching grandsons how to ride a bike. It was a world of family connections that he had lost and that these two children had never known. "Come on," he said suddenly, getting up from the bench. "Let's play." Anna looked at him with surprise. "Do you know how to play?" The question made him smile, the first genuine smile he had felt on his lips in 3 years. "It's been a while since I've played, but I think I still remember." He took them to the swings. Mikey hesitated at first, but with Anna by his side, encouraging him, he was soon shouting with joy as he was pushed gently through the air. Anna, on the swing next to him, laughed with a freedom that completely transformed her face. For a few minutes, they were simply two children playing, forgetting their difficult circumstances. Seeing them like that, free and happy, something inside the millionaire began to reorganize. The walls he had built around his heart began to develop, cracks letting in light for the first time in years. He remembered what it was like to push his own son on the swing, the shouts of joy, the feeling of purpose that came from making someone happy. When the sun began to set, he knew he couldn't simply let them go back to the street. Not tonight, not after seeing them being real children for the first time. "Anna," he said, his voice carrying a decision that still scared him. "How about you guys stay at my house tonight? I have empty rooms, hot food, a safe place to sleep." She stopped swinging, studying his face with that sharp perception she had developed to survive. "Why? What do you want in return?" The question revealed a sad wisdom about how the world worked. A 5-year-old child already knew that kindness usually came with a price, nothing. He replied honestly, "I just want you to have a safe night and a soft bed to sleep in." Anna considered his offer for a long moment, looking at Mikey, who had grown tired of playing and was now clinging to her leg. Finally, she nodded. "Double quotes, okay. But if we get uncomfortable, can we leave?" "You can leave whenever you want," he promised. The mansion seemed even bigger and emptier when he opened the doors for them. Anna and Mikey entered slowly, their eyes wide at the luxury that surrounded them, the high ceiling, the crystal chandelier, the expensive furniture. Everything seemed to belong to a fairy tale world. "Is this where you live?" Anna asked, her voice echoing in the foyer. "It is." For the first time, he felt embarrassed by his wealth. "It's pretty big, isn't it?" "It's bigger than the whole building where I used to live with my grandma," she said with genuine admiration. He led them to the kitchen, where he prepared simple sandwiches, the only thing he knew how to make, since he always had staff taking care of meals. Anna ate slowly, savoring each bite, while helping Mikey with his sandwich. After dinner, he showed them one of the guest rooms. It was a simple environment compared to the rest of the mansion, but luxurious by any child's standards. A queen-size bed with soft sheets, a private bathroom, a television, and a window that overlooked the illuminated garden. "You can sleep here," he said. "If you need anything, my room is at the end of the hall." Anna explored the room with careful reverence, touching the sheets, testing the softness of the mattress. Mikey threw himself on the bed immediately, sinking into the pillows with a sigh of pure contentment. "Can I take a shower?" Anna asked shyly. "Of course. There are clean towels in the bathroom closet." And he hesitated. "There are soaps and shampoos that should be suitable for kids." An hour later, when Anna came out of the bathroom, she was unrecognizable, clean, with her hair shining and wearing one of the hotel robes he kept for guests. Way too big for her, but clean and warm. She looked like a completely different child. Her skin was fairer than he had imagined, her eyes brighter, her smile more radiant. "I feel like a princess," she said, spinning so that the robe flew around her legs. He had to swallow the lump that formed in his throat. "You look like a princess." That night, after putting the children to sleep, Anna insisted that Mikey sleep in the same bed as her. He stayed awake in his office, looking at the gardens through the window. The house had never seemed as alive as it did at that moment, with 2 children sleeping upstairs. For the first time since the accident, he allowed himself to imagine a different future. A future where those childish voices filled the empty halls, where laughter echoed through the silent rooms, where he could be useful again, could protect someone instead of simply existing. It was a dangerous thought. He knew. A thought that could lead to consequences that would change his life completely. But as he listened to the distant echo of soft breaths coming from the guest room, he decided that maybe, just maybe, changes were exactly what he needed. The next morning brought a feeling that the millionaire had completely forgotten, that of waking up with purpose. For the first time in 3 years, he got up before the alarm clock, not because of the insomnia that plagued him, but because he wanted to check if the children were okay, if they had slept comfortably, if they needed anything. When he went down to the kitchen, he found Anna already awake, sitting at the gigantic dining table with Mikey in her lap. She had tried to prepare something for breakfast and had only managed to make a mess with bread, jelly, and spilled milk. But her face was radiant with satisfaction for having managed to feed Mikey. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I hope you don't mind. Mikey was hungry, and I didn't want to wake you up." Looking at the sweet mess she had created, he felt a strange emotion spreading through his chest. It had been so long since someone felt comfortable enough in his house to mess with his things, to worry about not bothering him but still take the initiative. Anna had transformed his impeccable kitchen into something that felt like a home. "Not at all," he said, sitting down at the table with them. "Did you sleep well?" "It was the best night of my life," Anna replied with absolute sincerity. "The bed was so soft that I thought I was sleeping on a cloud." And Mikey didn't have any nightmares. Nightmares? Of course, a 3-year-old child who was abandoned would have nightmares. Just another brutal reality of their lives that he was only beginning to understand. Does he have nightmares often? Almost every night. He dreams about his mom, or about bad men, or about being hungry. Anna stroked Mikey's hair with motherly tenderness, but last night he slept through the whole night. "I think it was because of the soft bed and knowing he was safe. What a simple and yet revolutionary concept for children who lived in a constant state of alert. He had never thought of safety as a luxury, but for Anna and Mikey, a night without fear was more precious than any material possession. "What would you like to do today?" he asked, surprised by his own question. When was the last time he had asked someone what they wanted to do? Instead of simply determining an agenda, Anna looked at him with that cautious expression that he was learning to recognize, the expression of someone who wasn't used to having her preferences considered. "We can choose." "Of course you can." She exchanged a look with Mikey, who whispered something in her ear. She smiled and turned back to him. "Mikey would like to see the little fish again," she said. "Last night, from the bedroom window, we saw that you have a pond in the garden with goldfish." He had never seen real fish before, the ornamental pond. He had completely forgotten about its existence. It had been built when his wife was alive, a project she had insisted on carrying out to bring life and movement to the garden. After the accident, he rarely went to the garden, and the pond had become just another element of the landscape that he ignored. "Of course, we can feed the fish too. I have special food for them." Mikey's eyes lit up for the first time since he had met him. The boy jumped off Anna's lap and ran towards the back door, pressing his face against the glass to try to see the pond. They spent the entire morning in the garden. Anna and Mikey were fascinated not only by the fish, but by the whole environment, the flowers carefully cultivated by the gardeners, the butterflies that danced among the plants, the birds that made nests in the trees. It was as if they were discovering nature for the first time. "It's the most beautiful place in the world," Anna sighed, lying on the soft grass, watching the clouds pass by. "Like paradise." He lay down next to them, something he hadn't done since childhood. From there, looking at the sky, his mansion, and his problems seemed smaller, less important. There was a peace in that moment that he hadn't experienced in years. "Do you have kids?" Anna asked suddenly, her voice curious but gentle. The question hit him like a bolt from the blue. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The images came back with full force. Gabriel laughing on the swing, Gabriel drawing superheroes, Gabriel falling asleep in his arms after a bedtime story. "I used to," he managed to say, his voice coming out hoarser than he expected. "A boy. He died." Anna turned to look at him, her brown eyes full of a compassion that was surprising in someone so young. She had known enough loss to recognize it in others. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "Was he my age?" "A little older. 6 years old." "What was he like?" No one had asked about Gabriel for 3 years. People avoided the subject, uncomfortable with his pain. But there was something in Anna's question, a genuine curiosity, without pity or discomfort, that made him want to talk. "He was brave," he began, surprised to find that he could talk about Gabriel without falling apart completely. "He liked superheroes and dinosaurs. He had a special way with animals. All the dogs in the neighborhood followed him, and he asked questions about everything. Why is the sky blue, Dad? Why do birds fly? Why do people get sad?" "He sounds like he was a special boy," Anna said. "He was." He looked at her and at Mikey, who had fallen asleep on the grass. "I think he would have liked you guys. And his mom, she died in the same accident." Anna processed this information in silence. Then, completely naturally, she extended her small hand and placed it on top of his. The gesture was simple, but loaded with a deep understanding. "It must be really lonely," she said, "living in this big house without family." It was the first time someone understood exactly how he felt. Lonely, not just sad or grieving, but deeply, devastatingly alone in a house that had been built to house love and laughter. "It is," he admitted, "very lonely. We know what it's like to be alone," Anna said. "But maybe we don't have to be alone all the time." There was a delicate suggestion in her words, an offer of mutual companionship that had nothing to do with pity or charity. It was a child offering friendship to an adult, recognizing that both had lost their families and could find comfort in each other. That afternoon, they did something he hadn't done in years. They watched a movie together. Anna chose an animated movie about a brave girl, and they settled on the couch in the TV room, a room he rarely used. Mikey fell asleep between them, and Anna snuggled against his arm with the naturalness of a daughter, feeling her small, warm weight against his side. He realized that he was crying, not tears of sadness, but of something he couldn't name completely, relief, perhaps, or gratitude, or the strange sensation of reconnecting with a part of himself that he thought was dead. "Are you okay?" Anna whispered, noticing his tears. "I am," he replied, and for the first time in 3 years, that answer was true. "I'm okay." But even as he savored that feeling of belonging and renewed purpose, a part of his rational mind began to intrude. What was he doing? Could he really keep 2 street children in his house indefinitely? There were legal, social, practical issues. Anna and Mikey weren't his children. He had no rights over them, and they had no documents, medical history, formal education. As the afternoon progressed, the challenges began to accumulate in his mind. How would he explain their presence to his staff? What if the authorities found out? What if someone reported that he was keeping children without proper documentation? But when he looked at Anna, who had fallen asleep next to him with the same confidence that a daughter would have, and at Mikey, who was sleeping peacefully for the 2nd night in a row, he knew that he couldn't simply send them away. Not after seeing them happy and safe. Not after feeling his own humanity returning through the connection with them. He would have to find a way. He would have to navigate the legal and social obstacles. Because for the first time in 3 years, he had something worth fighting for. A week had passed since Anna and Mikey arrived at the mansion, and the routine that had been established between them had something miraculous in its simplicity. The millionaire woke up early to prepare breakfast, a skill he was developing through trial and error, with Anna offering gentle suggestions on how not to burn the eggs. The children transformed the silent house into a home full of life. They ran through the halls, asked questions about everything they saw, and slowly began filling the void he had carried for 3 years. But on that Thursday morning, while Anna was helping Mikey get dressed, the millionaire received a call that would change everything. "Sir," his personal assistant's voice sounded tense. "I need to speak with you urgently. It's about the children who are in your house." His blood ran cold. "How did you find out about them?" "Dr. Helen Carter is here in the office. She's from Child Protective Services. They received an anonymous report that you are keeping children in an irregular situation." He closed his eyes, feeling the world collapsing around him. He knew that this moment would come, but he had allowed himself to believe that maybe he could solve everything discreetly, without external interference. 30 minutes, he said. "Tell her I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up the phone and went to the room where Anna was combing Mikey's hair. They greeted him with radiant smiles, and he felt his heart break knowing that this might be the last time he would see them like that, happy, safe, confident. "Anna, I need to go out for a few hours," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You guys stay here, okay? Don't answer the door for anyone." She immediately realized that something was wrong. Her expression changed, returning to that mask of caution that she had worn when they first met. "Is everything okay?" "Everything will be okay," he lied. "I'll be back soon." At the office, Dr. Helen Carter awaited him with a folder full of documents and a stern expression. She was a middle-aged woman, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, thick-rimmed glasses, and a demeanor that indicated years dealing with complicated situations involving vulnerable children. "Mr. Martins," she said without preamble, "we received information that you are keeping the homeless children in your residence without the proper legal procedures. This is a serious violation of child protection laws. They were hungry and cold." He replied, his voice loaded with a defensiveness that surprised him. "I only offered temporary shelter. I understand your compassion, but there are protocols. These children need to be registered in the system, undergo medical and psychological evaluations, have their family situation investigated. You can't simply pick up children from the street as if they were stray animals." The comparison irritated him deeply. They aren't animals. They're Anna and Mikey. They're children who were being neglected by a system that's supposed to protect them. "The system works, Mr. Martins, but it has its procedures. Where are these children now?" He hesitated. Every paternal instinct that he had developed in the past week screamed at him not to reveal where Anna and Mikey were, but he knew that lying would only make the situation worse. "In my house, safe, fed, cared for. I'll need to pick them up immediately. They'll be taken to a shelter temporarily while we investigate the situation." "No." The word came out more forcefully than he intended. "They're fine with me. For the first time in their lives, they're truly safe." Dr. Carter studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Martins, do you have children?" The question hit him like a punch. "I used to. I lost my family in an accident 3 years ago. I'm sorry." Her expression softened slightly. "I understand that you may be projecting your paternal feelings onto these children, but that doesn't make the situation legal. They need professional care, not an emotional substitute for your losses." "They aren't substitutes," he said firmly. "They're children who need love and care, and I can offer that. You don't even know their full story. You don't know their real names, their origins, if they have family looking for them." She opened the folder and took out some photographs. "The girl you call Anna, her real name is Isabella Santos, 5 years old. Disappeared from a foster care facility 6 months ago. And the boy isn't Mikey, it's Miguel Santos. The world stopped. Santos, the same last name. They're siblings?" he asked, his voice coming out in a whisper. "Half-siblings, same mother, different fathers. Their mother died 8 months ago from complications related to drug addiction. The children went into foster care, but Isabella, Anna, ran away, taking her younger brother. Since then, they've been living on the streets." He sat down heavily in the chair, processing the information. Anna had lied about not having family, but she hadn't lied out of malice. She had lied to protect Mikey, to keep them together. She knew that if they were caught, they could be separated. "Does the foster care facility want them back?" The foster care facility wants children who follow the rules. Isabella has a history of difficult behavior, constant runaways, refusal to separate from her brother, resistance to authority. The director considers them both problematic. Problematic. He repeated the word with bitterness. A 5-year-old girl who takes care of her younger brother is problematic. It's a complex situation, Mr. Martins. That's why there are trained professionals to handle cases like this. And what would be the professional outcome? Separate them. Put them in different families? Force Anna, Isabella, to abandon the only person she has in the world. Dr. Carter sighed. We can't always keep siblings together. Adoptive families prefer younger children. Without traumas, without complicated ties. The reality is that children like them rarely find permanent families. So the system is going to fail them too. The system does what it can with limited resources. He got up, walking to the window. Down below, he saw people hurrying to and fro, each taking care of their own lives, oblivious to the drama that was unfolding in the office above. How he had been one of them until a week ago. What if I wanted to adopt them? The question came out before he could analyze it completely. But the moment the words left his lips, he knew they were true. He wasn't just offering temporary shelter or doing charity. He was offering to be a father again. Dr. Carter looked at him with surprise. Adoption is a long and complex process, Mr. Martins, especially for a single man wanting to adopt 2 children with a traumatic history. But is it possible? Technically, yes. But there would be psychological evaluations, background checks, home visits, a supervised adaptation period. It could take years. And during that time, where do the children stay? That would depend on various factors. If you're really interested in pursuing an adoption, I can start the process. But the children would have to be placed in a shelter temporarily while everything is arranged. No, he turned to face her. They aren't going to a shelter. Not after having a home. Mr. Martins, Dr. Carter, do you have children? She hesitated. I have 2 grown children. Then you understand what it means to love a child. You understand that sometimes love is more important than protocol. These children have turned me into a father again, and I've turned them into protected and loved children. Separating our family now would be cruel to all of us. Family, she repeated. Mr. Martins, you've known these children for a week. I knew my biological son since birth, and even so I couldn't save him when he needed it. I've known Anna, Isabella, and Miguel for a week, but I'd already risked my life for them. Time isn't what makes a family. Love is. Dr. Carter was silent for a long moment, studying his face. Finally, she sighed. There's a possibility. Temporary guardianship while the adoption process goes through. It would be supervised, with regular visits, monthly reports, any problems, and the children would be removed immediately. I accept. It's not that simple. I'll need to visit your house, interview the children, assess whether the environment is suitable, and I'll have to record everything officially. There's no more keeping this a secret. He thought of Anna and Mikey waiting for him at home, probably worried about his delay. He thought of how Anna had blossomed in the past week, how Mikey had started to talk more, how the 2 had brought life and purpose back into his existence. When can we start? The drive home was the longest journey of the millionaire's life. Each red light seemed to last an eternity. Each mile traveled increased his anxiety about how to explain the situation to Anna and Mikey. How to tell a 5-year-old child that her world was about to be turned upside down again. How to explain that bureaucracies and protocols could separate them from everything they had found. That was good. When he opened the door of the mansion, he was greeted by the smell of burnt cookies and the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. Anna was trying to teach Mikey how to make cookies, and both were covered in flour from head to toe. The kitchen looked like it had been hit by a hurricane, but the smiles on the children's faces were radiant. You're back. Anna ran to him, hugging his legs tightly. We tried to make surprise cookies for you, but they got a little charred. Mikey hid behind Anna, as he always did when he was shy, but waved to him with fingers dirty with cookie dough. It was progress. A few weeks ago, the boy wouldn't even greet him. They smelled delicious, he lied, trying to keep his voice cheerful while his heart broke. Anna studied him with that sharp perception she had developed to survive. Did something bad happen? He knelt down to be at her height, taking her small hands in his. They were warm and soft, so different from the rough, dirty hands he had held for the first time only a week ago. Anna, Isabella, he began, seeing. Her eyes widened at hearing her real name. I need to talk to you both about something important. Her face closed immediately, returning to that protective mask that he thought had disappeared forever. She pulled Mikey closer to her, instinctively assuming the protective position she had perfected during months living on the streets. You. No, she said. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Someone told you who we are, Isabella. Anna, she corrected him firmly. I'm Anna. He's Mikey. We aren't those people anymore, okay? Anna and Mikey. He respected her choice, understanding that the names they had chosen represented a new identity, a new life they had built away from the trauma of the past. A woman from Child Protective Services came to see me. She knows you're here. Anna nodded slowly, as if she had already been expecting this moment. We'll have to leave. Not necessarily. I told her that I want to adopt you officially, that I want to be your real dad. Anna's eyes filled with tears, the first tears he had seen her shed since that first day in the rain. But this time they weren't tears of pain or fear. They were tears of a hope so intense that it almost hurt to see. Really, she whispered. You want to be our dad more than anything in the world, he replied, surprised by the absolute strength of his conviction. You taught me how to be a father again. You taught me that my heart hadn't died with my family. It was just waiting. For you too, Mikey, who didn't completely understand the conversation, felt the emotion in the air and clung tighter to Anna's hand. She pulled him onto her lap, holding him with the fierce protection that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. But there's a problem, he continued, hating having to break the moment. While the adoption process happens, which could take months or even years, you'll have to stay in a temporary shelter. No. The word came from Anna with a firmness that surprised him. We aren't going to a shelter. I already ran away from one before. I can run away again, Anna. Listen, you don't understand. Her voice rose, loaded with an anguish that seemed too big for her small body. At the shelter, they're going to separate us. They said that Mikey is too young to stay with me, that I'm too young to take care of him. They're going to put him with a family that wants babies, and I'm going to be all alone. Mikey began to cry, feeling Anna's despair even without fully understanding the words. She rocked him gently, whispering words of comfort in his ear. But her own tears continued to fall. I promised my mom before she died that I'd take care of him, Anna sobbed. I promised I'd never let anyone separate us. If you turn us over to the shelter, it'll be like breaking the promise I made to her. His heart broke completely. He pulled the two into a tight hug, feeling how Anna trembled against his chest. I'm not going to let that happen, he murmured. I'll find a way. But even as he made the promise, he knew that the options were limited. Dr. Carter had been clear. Protocol was protocol, and if he tried to resist or hide the children, he would lose any chance of a legal adoption. That night, after putting the children to bed, a process that took hours because Anna was too terrified to close her eyes, he stayed in the office making calls. Lawyers, influential contacts, anyone who might have information on how to navigate the child protection system. Most of the answers were discouraging. The system was rigid, especially for single men wanting to adopt. Children with trauma were considered difficult cases, and the fact that he had already developed a bond with them outside of official channels raised red flags about his motivations. But then, at 2 a.m, his personal lawyer called back with a possibility. There's a precedent, said Mr. Peterson, his voice tired but hopeful. Emergency guardianship due to medical or psychological necessity. If you can prove that separating the children from you now would cause severe psychological trauma, a judge may grant temporary guardianship while the adoption process goes through. How do I prove that? Psychological evaluation of the children, testimony from child psychologists, evidence that they've already adapted to your home as a therapeutic environment. How much time do we have? Dr. Carter is coming tomorrow for the inspection. If she decides to remove the children immediately, We'll have a few hours to file a restraining order." He hung up the phone and walked to the room where Anna and Mikey were sleeping, or at least where they should be sleeping. He found Anna awake, sitting on the bed, watching Mikey sleep. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "I'm afraid that if I fall asleep, when I wake up you'll be gone, or we'll be back on the street." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Can I tell you a secret?" She nodded. "I'm scared to. I'm scared of losing you both, because you've become my family. And I know I'm not the perfect dad." "You are perfect," Anna interrupted him vehemently. "You give us food when we're hungry, hugs when we're sad, and a safe place to sleep. You're the best dad in the world." Her words almost undid him. "Anna, no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know that these have been the happiest days of my life since I lost my family. You've saved me as much as I've saved you. Then why can't we just stay like this? Why do other people have to decide about our family?" It was a question he also asked himself. Why wasn't love enough? Why did bureaucracy have to interfere when three lost people had found each other? "Sometimes the world is complicated," he said, "but I promise you one thing, I'm going to fight for you. No matter what I need to do, I won't give up." Anna studied his face in the dim light of the room. "You really promise?" "I promise." She finally lay down, but reached out for him to hold her hand. "Stay here until I fall asleep." He stayed there for hours, holding her small hand, listening to the soft breaths of the two children who had become his whole world. He knew that morning would bring challenges that could destroy the small family they had built. But he also knew that, for the first time in 3 years, he had something worth fighting for until the end. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the drama that was unfolding in the silent mansion. Inside, a man who had lost everything discovered that maybe, just maybe, love was strong enough to overcome even the most rigid system. The morning came too soon. The millionaire had fallen asleep in the chair next to the children's bed and woke up with Anna gently shaking his shoulder. "She's here," Anna whispered, pointing to the window, the woman in the black car. He looked out and saw Dr. Carter parking in front of the mansion, accompanied by another adult, probably a social worker. His stomach clenched, but he forced a reassuring smile for Anna. "Remember what we talked about yesterday," he said softly. "Be yourself. Tell the truth about how you feel here, about Mikey, about our family." Anna nodded with determination that was impressive in someone so young. Mikey, who had woken up with the conversation, clung to her leg, clearly anxious about the tension in the air. The inspection was meticulous and painful. Dr. Carter examined every room in the house, made notes about everything, from the safety of the stairs to the locks on the windows, from the quality of the food in the refrigerator to the toys he had bought for the children. During the week, "Where do the children sleep?" she asked. He led them to the guest room, which had been completely transformed in the past week. There were drawings by Anna taped on the walls, small clothes carefully organized in the closet, a rocking horse that had belonged to Gabriel and that he finally had the courage to take out of the attic. "They share the room?" Dr. Carter asked. "Making notes. By their choice," he replied. "Anna, Isabella, insists on taking care of Mikey. Even though there are separate rooms available, they prefer to stay together." The social worker, a younger woman named Carla, knelt down to Anna's level. "Isabella, do you like living here?" "My name is Anna," she replied politely but firmly. "And yes, I love living here. It's the first place where I've felt safe since my mom died." "And what do you like to do here the most?" "Take care of Mikey and spend time with Dad," Anna replied, without hesitating, and his heart swelled at hearing her call him Dad so naturally. "Dad," Dr. Carter raised her eyebrows. "Do you already feel like a family?" "We are a family," Anna corrected. "He takes care of us. We take care of him. He was very sad before he met us. You know, now he smiles more." Anna's childish but insightful observations seemed to touch something in Dr. Carter. She looked at him with a slightly different expression, no longer just the employee following protocol, but perhaps recognizing something genuine in the dynamic she was observing. "Mr. Martins," she said, "could I speak with you in private?" They went to the office, leaving Carla playing with the children in the living room. Dr. Carter closed the door and turned to face him. Do you understand the complexity of this situation? I understand that two children who had nothing now have a home, food, safety, and love, and that a man who had lost the will to live now has a family again. You also understand that Isabella, Anna, has developed an unhealthy complex of responsibility towards Mikey, that she sees herself as his mother, not his sister. I understand that a 5-year-old girl had to grow up too fast to protect someone she loves, and that now, for the first time, she can be a child again because there's a responsible adult taking care of both of them. Dr. Carter sighed. You talk like their father. Because I am their father. Maybe not biologically, maybe not legally. Yet, but in every aspect that matters, I am their father. What if I say that I need to take them today? That protocol requires that they be placed in a shelter temporarily, while we assess whether you're suitable for adoption. He got up, walking to the window where he could see Anna pushing Mikey on the swing in the garden. Even in a moment of play, she kept a protective hand on him, always attentive to ensure that he was safe. Then I would fight it with every legal tool available, he said calmly. I would hire the best lawyers, look for legal precedents, make all the noise necessary, because separating these children from a home where they're loved and putting them into a system that has already failed them would be cruel and unnecessary. What if that prolonged the adoption process? What if your resistance to protocol was interpreted as obstinacy and harmed your chances? He turned to face her. Dr. Carter, can I ask you a personal question? She hesitated, but nodded. Have you ever seen a child die from lack of love? What do you mean my biological son had everything money could buy, food, shelter, education, medical care. But in the moment he needed it most, when the car flipped over, I couldn't save him. Anna and Mikey had nothing materially, but they were dying inside from lack of love, of security, of someone who cared if they lived or died. Here they have that. They're alive again. Dr. Carter was silent for a long moment, watching the children through the window. You understand that there will be constant supervision, weekly visits, reports, ongoing evaluations. I understand, and that any sign of inadequacy will result in the immediate removal of the children. I understand, and that the adoption process may take 2 years or more. I understand. She sighed deeply. Very well. I'm going to recommend supervised temporary guardianship while the adoption process goes through, but with strict conditions. The relief he felt was so intense that he had to lean on the table. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. You'll have to prove daily that you can be the father these children need. I will. When they returned to the living room, they found Anna and Mikey on the couch with Carla, who was showing them photos of other successful adoption cases. Anna looked up anxiously when she saw them enter. Can I talk to you for a minute, Anna? Dr. Carter asked. Anna nodded, but held Mikey's hand tightly. Mikey's coming with me, okay? They sat down on the floor, and Dr. Carter knelt down to be at their level. Anna, would you like to continue living here while we work to make your family official? Anna's eyes lit up. We can stay. You can stay. But I'm going to visit you every week to make sure that everything is okay. And you're going to talk to a therapist to help us understand how you're feeling. Is that okay? Okay. Anna jumped into her arms, hugging her tightly. Thank you for letting us stay with Dad. Mikey, still shy, waved to Dr. Carter but remained glued to Anna. After the authorities left, the house was strangely silent. It was as if everyone was processing the magnitude of what had happened. They had bought time, a chance, but the future was still uncertain. Dad, Anna called, using the title that had become natural for her. Yes? Are we going to be able to stay together forever? He pulled her onto his lap, hugging her together with Mikey. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure of it. Promise. I promise. And this time, he really believed that he could keep that promise. 6 months had passed since that tense morning with Dr. Carter, and life had settled into a routine that seemed almost normal, if it weren't for the weekly visits, the constant reports, and the ever-present tension that everything could change at any moment. Anna had started attending a private school nearby, where she initially had difficulty adjusting, but gradually won over teachers and classmates with her natural intelligence and fierce determination. Mikey, now 4 years old, had begun to speak more and showed fewer signs of the trauma he carried when they arrived. But on that April morning, everything changed again. The millionaire received a call from Mr. Peterson at 7 in the morning. When he was still preparing breakfast for the children, "We have a serious problem." The lawyer's voice was tense. "Edward Mendes has filed a challenge to the adoption process." He almost dropped the coffee mug. Edward Mendes was his former partner, an ambitious and unscrupulous man who had tried to take control of the company. During the most difficult period after the accident, the legal battle had been brutal, and when he finally managed to oust Edward from the partnership, he made a powerful enemy. What kind of challenge? He's claiming that you're psychologically unstable, that you're using the children to fill an emotional void in an unhealthy way, and that you represent a danger to their well-being. Based on what? He brought evidence of your period of depression. After the accident, medical records from when you self-medicated to sleep, and he has photos. Photos of what? Of you with the children in the early days, before the official process started. Someone photographed you at the park, at the restaurant. He's claiming that you were collecting vulnerable children without proper supervision. His blood ran cold. Who took those photos? Probably a private investigator he hired. Edward found out about the children through gossip in social circles. Apparently, someone from one of the restaurants you frequented with them commented. He looked at Anna, who was helping Mikey tie his shoelaces, humming a song she had learned at school. She seemed so safe, so happy, so far from the frightened child he had found 8 months ago. What does this mean for the process? It means that there will be a hearing. A judge will decide whether you represent a risk to the children. If Edward manages to prove his allegations, you could lose guardianship immediately. And the chances, Edward is convincing and has resources. And he brought an alternative proposal. What proposal? He and his wife want to adopt Mikey. They claim that a younger child has a better chance of adapting in a traditional structured family. As for Anna, what about Anna? They suggest that she be placed in a specialized institution for children with attachment disorders. They claim she's too problematic for adoption. The fury that seized him was so intense that he had to sit down. Edward wanted to destroy his family out of revenge, separating the children and sending Anna to an institution. "Dad," Anna approached, noticing his altered expression. "Are you okay?" He forced a smile, putting the phone away. "I'm fine, honey. Go get ready for school." But Anna wasn't fooled. She had developed a keen perception for signs of danger, and something in his posture alerted her. "It's about us, isn't it?" she asked directly. "Someone wants to take us away from here." He hesitated, but decided on honesty. Anna deserved to know what she was facing. "A bad man is trying to separate our family," he said. "But I'm not going to let that happen. He wants to take Mikey. He wants both of you, but two different places." Anna's eyes filled with tears of anger. "I won't let him. I promised my mom that I'd take care of him, and you have taken care of him. You're the best big sister in the world. Then why does he want to separate us?" How to explain to a 6-year-old the complexities of adult revenge? How to say that there were people in the world who destroyed families just out of sadism? "Because he wants to hurt me, and he knows that you're the most important thing in my life." Anna processed this with her frightening maturity. "So it's Mikey's and my fault?" "No." He knelt down to be at her height. "It's never your fault. You're the best things that have ever happened to me. This man is the one who's wrong. What are we going to do? We're going to fight. We're going to prove to the judge that we're a real family, that you're happy and safe here." How? By being exactly who you are, showing how much you've grown, how much you're loved, how much we love each other. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. During that period, the house was transformed into a legal preparation center. Lawyers came and went. Child psychologists conducted evaluations, and Anna and Mikey were subjected to more interviews and tests than any child should face. Dr. Carter, who had become an unexpected ally over the months, was clearly disturbed by the situation. "Edward Mendes has a history of using the legal system as a weapon," she confided. "But the children have clearly thrived under your care. Anna is doing well in school. Mikey is developing normal social skills. There's no evidence of abuse or neglect. But But he has money and influence, and there's always the prejudice against single men adopting children. On the night before the hearing, Anna couldn't sleep. She came to his room at 2 in the morning, holding Mikey by the hand. "Can I talk to you?" They sat on the porch, looking at the stars. Mikey had fallen asleep on his lap, but Anna was too agitated to relax. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you, not of staying here. I'm scared of becoming invisible again. Invisible. Before you found us, I felt like we didn't really exist. Like we were ghosts that people pretended not to see. Here, I exist. Mikey exists. We're important." Her words hit him like a lightning bolt. "You've always been important, Anna. It's just that the world wasn't paying attention. But what if he manages to take us away? What if we become invisible again?" He pulled her closer, hugging the 2 children he had chosen to love. "Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter where you are, you'll never be invisible to me again. You've changed my life forever, and even if the whole world separates us, you'll always be my children in my heart, and we'll always be your children. In our hearts too," Anna whispered. Double quotes, always. They stayed there until dawn. 3 souls who had found each other against all odds, preparing to fight for the family they had built. The courtroom was silent, with only the sound of the air conditioning, breaking the tension that hung in the air. Anna held Mikey's hand firmly, both dressed in their best clothes, sitting next to the man they had learned to call Dad. Across the room, Edward Mendes and his wife examined papers with their lawyers, occasionally casting calculating glances in the direction of the children. The judge, Judge Thompson, was a middle-aged man with graying hair and an expression that didn't reveal his inclinations. He had spent the entire morning listening to arguments, examining evidence, and asking questions that seemed to dissect every aspect of the life they had built together. "Before I make my decision," the judge said, his voice echoing through the courtroom, "I'd like to hear from the children. Isabella, can you come forward?" Anna released Mikey's hand reluctantly and walked to the front of the courtroom. She looked tiny before the judge's imposing desk, but kept her back straight and her chin raised with a dignity that impressed everyone present. "Isabella, do you understand why we're here today?" "Yes, sir. Some people want to separate my brother and me from our dad. And how do you feel about that?" Anna took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried a clarity and strength that completely silenced the courtroom. "Judge Thompson, before I met my dad, Mikey and I were nothing. We were like ghosts that people pretended not to see. We slept in the rain, we went hungry, and nobody cared if we lived or died. I had to take care of Mikey alone, and sometimes I cried from fear because I didn't know how to protect him." She paused, wiping a tear that ran down her face, but kept her voice steady. "Then my dad found us, and for the first time, someone saw us, not as problems or as poor things, but as important people. He gave us food when we were hungry, hugs when we were sad, and a house where we can sleep without fear. But more important than all that, he gave us love." Edward Mendes shifted uncomfortably in his chair, but Anna continued, "At school, my teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. All the other kids said things like doctor or astronaut. I said I want to be like my dad. She asked why, and I said, because he takes broken people and makes them whole again." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Even the lawyers had stopped taking notes. "That man over there," Anna pointed to Edward, "wants to take Mikey away from me. He wants to send me to a place where they treat children like they're defective. But we aren't defective, Judge Thompson. We're a family, and families stay together." She turned to look at the millionaire, who had tears in his eyes. "My dad always says that it wasn't him who saved us, that it was us who saved him, and it's true. Before he met us, he was sad and lonely too. Now, our house is full of laughter and love. We saved each other. Thank you, Isabella. You can go. Back to your seat." Anna walked back, and the millionaire pulled her into a tight hug. Mikey, who had watched everything with wide eyes, whispered, "Anna was brave. Very brave." He agreed. The judge called Mikey next, but the boy, still shy, only nodded from his chair and said clearly, "I love my family." They were simple words, but loaded with a pure truth. That echoed through the courtroom. Judge Thompson retired to deliberate for 2 hours that seemed eternal. When he returned, his expression was solemn. "This is an extraordinary case," he began. "Rarely do I see situations where the transformative impact of family love is so evident. The psychological evaluations show that both children have blossomed under Mr. Martins's care. Isabella demonstrates remarkable academic progress and healthy emotional development. Miguel has overcome significant traumas and is developing normally." Edward leaned forward. Confident, however, the judge continued, "I must also consider the allegations that Mr. Martins may be projecting his own family loss onto these children in a potentially harmful way." The millionaire's heart raced. After examining all the evidence, interviewing witnesses, and observing the family dynamic, "I come to the following conclusion. Love cannot be manufactured. Genuine transformation cannot be staged. And the bond between these three people is real, profound, and mutually beneficial." Anna held her breath. "Therefore, I deny the request to remove the children and approve the adoption process. Mr. Martins has demonstrated to be an exceptional father, and Isabella and Miguel have demonstrated to be resilient children who have found stability and love under his care." The explosion of emotion in the courtroom was instantaneous. Anna jumped into her father's arms. Mikey began to cry with relief, and even Dr. Carter discreetly wiped her eyes. Edward Maindus left the courtroom without saying a word. His attempt at revenge transformed into humiliating defeat. "Does this mean we're a real family now?" Anna asked through tears. "You've always been my real family," he replied, hugging his two children. "Now the whole world knows it too." 2 years later, the mansion that once echoed only silence now vibrated with constant life. Anna, now 8 years old, had become one of the best students in her class and showed early signs of leadership talent, organizing charity projects at school and always defending more vulnerable classmates. Mikey, at 6 years old, had completely lost his extreme shyness and revealed himself to be a curious and affectionate child, with a particular fascination for animals and nature. But the most remarkable transformation had happened with the millionaire. The man who once lived only to accumulate wealth now dedicated a large part of his time and resources to social causes. He had created a foundation that served children in street situations, offering not only shelter and food, but educational programs and psychological support. The Gabriel, Anna, and Mikey Institute was the name of the organization, a tribute to the son he lost and the children he gained. In just 2 years, it had already taken more than 200 children off the streets and reunited 43 families through assisted adoption processes. On that Saturday morning, while they were having breakfast in the garden, a tradition they had developed on weekends, Anna asked a question that caught him by surprise. "Dad, do you think your first family would be happy with our family now?" He paused, with the coffee cup in the air, processing the profound question that only Anna would know how to ask. "Why do you ask that, honey?" "Because last night I dreamed about them, about Gabriel and your wife. They were smiling, and they said thank you." Mikey, who was feeding the fish in the pond, turned to the conversation. "Thank you for what?" "For taking care of Dad when he was sad," Anna explained with the naturalness with which she talked about deep things, "and for letting him be a dad again." His eyes filled with tears. Tears that were no longer of pain, but of a gratitude so deep that it almost hurt physically. "You know, Anna, I think they would be very happy. Gabriel would love to have siblings like you. And my wife, she always said that love multiplies. It never divides." "What does that mean?" Mikey asked, returning to the table. "It means that when you love more people, it doesn't mean you love others less. It means your heart gets bigger." Anna nodded wisely. "Like our family, when you adopted us. You didn't replace your first family. You just made a bigger family later." That day, they visited the cemetery where Gabriel and his mother were buried. It was something they did every month, not out of obligation or sadness, but as a way to maintain the connection between past and present. Anna and Mikey had created the ritual of leaving drawings on the tombstone. This time, Anna had made a drawing of the complete family, her, Mikey, Dad, and to translucent figures in the sky that represented Gabriel and his mother. "Hi, Gabriel," Anna said, placing the drawing on the tombstone. "I'm Anna, and this is Mikey. We're your dad's new kids. We want you to know that we're taking good care of him." Mikey, less eloquent but equally sincere, simply said, "Thank you for lending us your dad." On the way back home, they passed by the place where it had all begun, the street behind the restaurant where he had found her on that rainy afternoon. The site now housed a small square with benches and a plaque that read, "Second Chance Square. In memory of all the children who need to be seen. Do you remember what it was like before?" he asked Anna. She looked around, seeing the contrast between what that place represented then and what it represented now. "I remember," she said thoughtfully, "but it seems like a bad dream that's over, like it was someone else's." "Sometimes I still have nightmares about that time," Mikey admitted. "But then I wake up and remember that I have a soft bed and you and Dad in the room next door. And you know what's the best part?" Anna continued. "Now, when I see other children like we were, I can help. I can tell them that there's hope." And it was true. Anna had become a little ambassador for the foundation, accompanying her father on visits to social projects, and always finding ways to connect with children who still lived on the streets. Her ability to communicate hope to those who had lost faith was extraordinary. That night, after putting the children to bed, a ritual that now included stories, conversations about the day, and always a multiple "I love you," he stayed, alone in the office, reflecting on the incredible journey that had led them there 3 years ago. He was a man dead inside, only executing mechanical movements of existence. Today, he was the father of 2 extraordinary children, director of a foundation that changed lives, and someone who had rediscovered that the purpose of life was not in accumulating wealth, but in multiplying love. His phone rang. It was Dr. Carter. "Good evening, Mr. Martins. I hope I'm not bothering you." "Of course not, Dr. Carter. How are you?" "Well, thank you. Actually, I'm calling because we have a situation. 3 siblings, ages 4 to 9, were found abandoned today. Similar conditions to Anna and Mikey when we met them. The oldest boy is refusing to separate from his younger siblings." He smiled, knowing exactly where the conversation was going. "And you thought of us." "I thought of you. I know you already have a complete family, but these siblings reminded me so much of Anna and Mikey, and I thought, maybe you could at least meet them. Maybe Anna could talk to the oldest boy." He looked out the office window, seeing the lights still on in the children's room. Probably Anna reading to Mikey before they went to sleep. "Dr. Carter, tomorrow morning. The 3 of us will be there. Thank you. I knew I could count on you." When he hung up, he went upstairs to say good night to the children one more time. He found Anna and Mikey talking quietly in bed. "What are you guys talking about?" he asked. "About how lucky we are," Anna replied, "and about how we need to help other kids get as lucky." "Actually," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, "I just got a call about 3 siblings who need help. Would you like to meet them tomorrow?" Anna's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we help?" "We can always help," he replied. "This is our family, and our family takes care of other families." Mikey snuggled against him. "Is our house big enough for more siblings?" "Our house is big enough for all the love we want to put in it." Anna smiled, that radiant smile that had become her trademark. "So tomorrow we're going to meet our new siblings? We're going to meet 3 children who need to know that they aren't alone in the world, and then we'll see what happens." That night, he fell asleep with the feeling that life had become exactly what it should be, a continuous cycle of giving and receiving love, of transforming pain into purpose, of finding family in the most unexpected places. The story that had begun with a hungry girl scavenging for trash had become something much bigger, a network of love that expanded to embrace every child who needed to be seen, protected, and loved. And in the silence of the house that was now truly a home, 3 hearts beat in sync, 3 souls who saved each other, and now dedicated their lives to saving others. Because sometimes, a moment of compassion can change not just one life, but entire generations. And sometimes, the most beautiful families are those we choose to build with love, not with blood. If this story touched you, Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. Share in the comments what would you do in the millionaire's place. Which moment in this story moved you the most?